I know of transfer fee. I know of stamp duties. I know of value-added tax. I beg, which one is cybersecurity levy again? Oh? That was a comment I saw yesterday on Twitter. The directive by the Central Bank of Nigeria to banks touching deducting cybersecurity levy has raised a few eyebrows, with many people asking if this is the right time to make the call. Now, this is a legitimate concern if you ask me. But on the show today, I have a guest that will discuss this together. I'd like to welcome you to MarketSquare. My name is Olawale Osowo, and as always, I'm happy to have you join me on the show. All the banks in Nigeria have been instructed by the Central Bank of Nigeria to start charging what is called cybersecurity levy on transactions. And what that means is it's a levy, it's a fee charged on electric transactions to raise funds for improving the country's cybersecurity defense. It's pretty much a new concept, but to tell you how new this is, Nigeria is one of the first countries to implement this on a nationwide scale. The circular received from the Central Bank of Nigeria directed all commercial, merchant, non-interest, and payment service banks to begin to implement the levy in 13 days. To this, there are exceptions anyway. And I'm guessing that as I call out the exceptions there, you would see it pop up on the screen. You can see loan disbursement, you can see repayment, you can see salary payments, you can see intra-account transfers with the same bank or between different banks for the same customer, and also intra-bank transfers between customers of the same bank from the levy. So any transaction that falls within this range isn't supposed to be charged any cybersecurity levy. Well, to discuss the implication of this and look at this even critically with me on the show today is an economist and financial analyst, Mr. Olawale Osowo. Mr. Olawale Osowo, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olawale.
Awesome. Now, given the directive by the Central Bank of Nigeria that from May 20th, 2024, on every 1,000 naira electric transaction, 5 naira will be deducted. On every 10,000 naira transaction, 50 naira will be deducted. On every 100,000 naira transaction, 500 naira will be deducted. On every 1 million naira transaction, 5,000 naira will be deducted. I want to ask you first, what's your take on the announced cybersecurity levy?
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Olawale. The cybersecurity levy, first explain that this is not like a new thing. This is not a new thing. To be candid, the act has been there for a while before it was announced by CBN. Before CBN released a circular in order to make sure that banks deduct 0.5% on this particular transaction. So it's already in 2015 Cybercrime Act already that it was underway that this was supposed to be introduced. And as you said, it's in order to tackle cybercrime. So for me personally, cybersecurity levy, it's just like, it's another tax. It's another kind of specific tax introduced by the CBN in order for their policy of widening the tax net. But another thing we have to tell ourselves is the cybersecurity levy that was introduced. What is the major purpose? As we said, we mentioned the purpose. It's just like another tertiary education tax, which is a 3% that is deducted on accessible profit for companies. If you read the circular word, I know there have been many offers on the introduced tax, but if you look at the circular very well, if you read the circular properly, you will see that the level of 0.05% of all electronic transactions is not for all individuals. If you read the circular said, the A part of the circular 2A says the level of 0.005 of all electronic transactions by the businesses specified in the second schedule to this act. So most likely, I know the CBN has not done a very good work in specifying which people or who are the individuals that are going to be paying this particular tax. But if you read the circular very well, the language of the circular, what it says is to all businesses specified. So most likely, individuals are not going to be paying this cybersecurity levy that is introduced, most likely. But again, I'm still looking for the CBN in order to clarify this particular language. What do they mean by all? What do they mean by all businesses? What do they mean by all transactions? Who are they classifying as customers? Because customers can be either individual or corporate. So who are they really classifying as individuals? Because we all know in the language of the Tertiary Education Act that it was only introduced towards corporate accounts, corporate individuals. So definitely people are paying are not individuals. So my take on this is that if it is to be an individual taxation, which I absolutely think it is not, if it is to be an individual taxation, they definitely means that it is increasing the tax burden on individuals again. Because if you look at the transaction, if you look at the amount people are paying for transacting daily, it's already enough. Stamp duty, this duty here and there, it's already enough already. But if it is to be on business, I think, for example, it's actually a good one to come back.
Okay, well, I think the fact that CBN has not specified what businesses will pay that tax is also an issue. But looking at it from the perspective of the other taxes that we've had to pay, some of the levies, transfer levies, stamp duty, VAT, and all of that, it doesn't feel as though the government seemed to consider us so much. Because look at the state of the country at the moment. The minimum wage is still being discussed at the moment. There's difficulty in getting fuel in some parts of Nigeria. And then the inflation figures for the month of March was over 30%, with food inflation hitting over 40%. And we're asking questions as to how right is this levy instruction at this time? I remember that we also had the issue of the removal of electricity subsidy happen this year as well. So how timely is this levy instruction at this time?
Okay, thank you. So if you look at definitely, if you look at the time this particular tax is coming in, then we will have to tell ourselves the truth that it is not a good time concerning the economic situation of the country, because different things are being removed, subsidies here and there, electricity subsidies, fuel subsidies, the price of fuel and is skyrocketing day by day with scarcity here and there. But and we are now bringing another level in. So it's definitely something that already places another burden on the individuals. But I'm saying that it might not actually be legal. Even on businesses, yes, it will tell on businesses. But we also have to tell ourselves that there is, for me, in the country, in the economy, there's never going to be a good time to introduce the Cybersecurity Levy. There's never going to be a good time to tell ourselves, because any time that it is introduced in the country, would definitely see an uproar, because over the years, the economy of the country has not been looking good. If it is introduced now or later, definitely it is. And this is something that has been in pipeline for so long. 2015, it has been in the pipeline for so long. So I do not think that, I just think CBN has to specify, and the government also has to be very good public relation on explaining what this tax is all about and why this tax is in place. Now, people do not definitely have issues paying this tax or this levy as it may be. The major issue that people have is, what are these things used for? What are these things used for? For example, tertiary education tax is being collected, and we are still seeing the state of the educational sector still dwindling day by day. These taxes that are being collected, what are they used for? So people definitely want to know what these taxes are being used for. So we know that government is like a social contract. Definitely, citizens have responsibilities to pay. They have duties, and they know this. But also, government also have responsibilities. What is the government using this tax? That is the major issue. The trust, that particular trust in the government. That, okay, if I'm paying this particular tax, if I'm paying this 0.005 on a transaction that I'm making, how am I sure that this is going truly into the cybersecurity fund, and the cybersecurity fund will be truly used to tackle cybersecurity risks in the country and used to safeguard all our transactions? So that is the major issue that we are having as a country, and that is why we might argue that it is not reasonable. If it is not reasonable enough, if the government won't use this particular amount of money in order for the purpose at which it was collected.
Definitely, and as well, if you look at also the context of saying that you're giving the banks 2 weeks. 2 weeks to implement this, and if you're going to talk about 2 weeks, that's like May 20th, and we're saying that, is this strategic enough? Can't you leave it till, let's say, first week in June? People have planned their money for. Some people send money from outside the country. Some people send money within the country. Businesses, and I think you rightly mentioned as well that even for businesses, it's not been easy for them. For instance, some companies are even laying off workers as I speak to you right now. So, how strategic? Because you said that there is no good time to implement cybersecurity levy in any country, because you are whatever time you try to implement it, you also have people revolt to say they don't want it. So, would you have suggested, if you were in the team, would you have suggested that these should have been delayed till the first week in June, just allowing people plan their month so that at least when they get to June, they can begin to pay that?
Correct, because if you look at the administration, most times, as you said, their timeliness has actually been very, very questionable. For example, going into power first, and the first thing you do is to remove fuel subsidy. This is very, very questionable. Even though you are going to be removing it, there should be a caution. And so, if you look at, for me, truthfully, the timeliness is very, very wrong, and you have to be able to give it time. Yes. Because there have to be a lot of awareness that should go into this particular thing. Yes, we are introducing it at this time, but not immediately, not in 2 weeks. So we have to first create awareness, tell people what this is used for. Let news outlets, let them grant interviews and explain what this particular thing is being used for and why this must come into play in this time. So not just saying that in the next 2 weeks from this circular that we are going to be charging this particular money for transactions. So for that, I think CBN can do more by extending the period, maybe to June, maybe to the ending of June or something. But they can do well by extending this period from this 2 weeks to a further period, because it will mean that businesses will need to adjust to this particular thing. So different things will come into play. Businesses need to adjust. Those accounting for it, those doing the financial reporting need to adjust for this. Those doing the analysis of financials may need to adjust for it. Different things needs to come into play. So they need to give it time. They need to give it time and educate the people and the masses more on how these things should go.
I agree to that 100% as well. But the last question I have for you on the show today is this. Now, when we look at this levy even more and to consider some of these things for people who are employees, so I'm asking you a 2-in-1 question now as an economist. Would you recommend that employers transfer this levy payment to their employees, where people, for instance, now a boss wants to pay the salary for May. So if we're going to say it starts from the 20th of May, it means that to a very good extent, there's a tendency that some employers are considering transferring the payment of this levy to their employees. And would you recommend that this happens? Number 2, what's your advice for households? How can households just manage their resources at this point in time in the country?
Okay, thank you very much. So I think I have to state first that we know that there are few exemptions to this particular levy, and personal salary are one of these few exemptions. Your salary, my salary will not be charged as part of these cyber transactions, cyber levy, everything. So salaries are exempted from this, loans are exempted. There are part of other things are also exempted. Now, transactions from same bank are also exempted. Sending money from Access Bank to Access Bank is exempted. Transferring under same name, sending money from my accounts to another bank that is still my account is also exempted. So these are some of the things that are exempted from the tax. But again, the CBN has done a poor job in educating the masses. So we cannot really tell. People cannot really tell unless they dig down into the circular and the acts that introduce this particular levy and fund. But there are so many things that are exempted from this. So on that part, our salaries are exempted. So our salaries are exempted, personal loans and other things. So how can households manage
their income and expenses in this particular period. So the truth is, we are in a very very tough time. So, but the truth is, principles still remain the same. Principles will never change. The economic situation of a country, there are still some principles have never changed. Principles like saving, principles like delaying gratifications, and principles like investment. So I just advise every household, right? Like, there are some households that their income alone, combined income of an household is not up to, combined income of some household is not even up to 100,000. Truthfully, what would 100,000 do for an household in this present economy? Probably a bag of rice and something like that. So, how to plan? You have to plan their savings, their accounts. Everything has to be budgeted. Everything has to be budgeted before the budget plan. Save a particular proportion of the income, and also make sure that at the end of the day, if possible, you have something to invest in. Why I said if possible, I know majority of finance books say something like you must invest, you must do this, you must do that. But the truth is, even the economic climate of the country is not encouraging investment. That's one. Two is that at the end of the day, there are still some households that they cannot invest based on their current income. They cannot invest. So right now, if they cannot invest, the major thing that you can just do is to have a little emergency savings, save, and also make sure that every item is budgeted for. That excesses and leakages can be cut short from their streams of income. Another thing is every household right now should make sure that they strive towards earning more, increasing their earning power. And increasing earning power means that you want to increase your skills, you want to increase your skills, and you want to be able to even earn more than you are earning, even based on your present job. And this also comes by increasing knowledge, offering services to the market that you know that they will definitely pay. And for me, that is the way to come out of this economic situation we find ourselves as a country.
I think it's great that we have clarified that this levy doesn't concern salary payment. So bosses watching this right now can understand that it doesn't concern salary payment. And also that I think for me, when talking about how to be financially stable in an economy like this, people talk more about saving and saving and saving and saving. I'm saying there's a level to which you would save that you start starving. Why not expand your reach, your portfolio to say, okay, I want to earn more. That's a way to stay sane and happy in an economy where inflation rate is rising by the day. But I think you've nailed it so beautifully, Mr. Olawale Olumide. Thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Olawale. Thanks for having me.
Always. Thank you. Now let's do the numbers. Yesterday, the Nigerian stock market closed negatively, losing 4.53 basis points with a negative market breadth. The NGX All-Share Index declined by 0.005% to close at 98,223.97 basis points compared to the previous day's loss of 0.48% to close at 98,228.50 basis points. The NGX market capitalization also recorded a loss of 2.56 billion naira in naira terms. For the exchange rate, the NatFest rate depreciated by 0.26% from 1,399.37 naira per dollar to 1,403 naira per dollar, while the Bureau de change rate depreciated by 0.70% from 1,423 naira per dollar to 1,433 naira per dollar. Thank you for listening. The Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission has said it will begin the process of blocking loan apps that harass their customers. Now, many Nigerians have complained about the harassment they are subjected to by some of these loan sharks. Mr. Adamu is the Commission's acting chairman, said the agency has begun to address the issue. Recall that some weeks back, the Nigeria Data Protection Commission said it was investigating over 400 cases of privacy breaches involving online loan apps. And from that investigation, it was discovered that most of these loan apps in Nigeria are overly intrusive. Loan apps are considered intrusive when they request or access more personal information than is necessary to assess your loan eligibility and creditworthiness. This usually raises privacy concerns and could make a person who wants to apply to get money feel uncomfortable. Some of these companies request excessive data. They ask for access to your contact list, ask for access to know your location, your browsing history, and even sometimes your social media account. And some of this information may not be directly relevant to your ability to repay the loan. Some of these apps don't even explain clearly whether they need certain data and how they intend to use the data they get from you. Sometimes some of these apps even give highly unfair loan terms, given certain unbelievable interest rates. I mean, how can somebody want to borrow 5,000 naira and pay back 7,000 naira? Worst of all is that there have been cases where they resort to harsh tactics to collect repayments, like bombarding you with calls and messages, or even threatening to share your information with all your contacts. I personally have heard of cases where they circulate your picture, right? Circulate your picture and declare you dead. This one I've been sent before. They will circulate your picture and declare you dead just so that you can repay the 5K you borrowed back. Can you imagine? So the NDPC is also considering a ban and restriction on mobile numbers found to be used by lenders to breach the privacy of consumers. And I think this is a very important move at this time. Many cases in the last 3 years where these companies tend to harass their customers, tend to pry on their privacy and share their details without even asking. And this is a good move that is being made. Thank you for joining me on the show today. It's been a delight to have you join me. Do have to follow us on all our social media platforms, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Instagram. My name is Olawale Osowo. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.